welcome to another week of the Newman Show. I am, of course, your host, Dennis Newman. Unfortunately, Mike could not be with us tonight. He had some other stuff going on, and we're gonna kind of wrap up what we were talking about last week as far as just guns in general, gun control, misconceptions about guns. Fred Watkins is going to be calling back in. He's a firearms instructor and a gun expert, so he should be calling in probably about 10 minutes or so. So in the meantime, let me go through some things I normally don't do. I forget to promote everything. You want to check out In the Cage with Cyclone. He's a show right before us. He talks about all different fight sports, specifically stuff like MMA, wrestling, boxing. So check his show out. Very informed show. He knows what he's talking about. He's an insider. So check that out. I have some big shows coming up. Saturday, the 17th, this Saturday, I will be at the Broadway Comedy Club in a contest. It is $20 cash at the door. It starts at 6 p.m. I need people there because I can't win if I don't have enough people. Unfortunately, that's the way comedy works at my level. So definitely, if you could get out to Manhattan this Saturday, I would appreciate it. On Friday, August 23rd at 9, I will be at Coasters in East Meadow for the Tinge Cuff comedy production, and that's $10 at the door. So if you can't make it to Manhattan, definitely come down to East Meadow and Coasters. That's always a fun time. There's going to be a lot of good comedians on that as well. And to wrap off the busy week, Wednesday, August 28th, I will be at the Course of Action Comedy show, which is at Revolution. And there's no complaints about this one because it is free. And that starts at 8. So you have 3 chances to come see me within, like a week and a half, 2 week span. So you have no excuse. I have a Saturday night, a Friday night, and a Wednesday night, everywhere from Manhattan to Amityville. So again, no excuses why you can't get out there and check me out. Unless you just don't like me, which is fine. What's up, Frank? What's going on? I see Maria's tuning in. V just tuned in. So again, just to recap, last week we had Fred call in and we talked about misconceptions about guns in general, gun control, if it's good or bad, mass shooter, misconceptions, and we didn't really get to finish the topic because there is a lot to cover on it, so he's going to call back in and we will finish that up. So before he calls in, let's pay some bills and we'll get to our sponsors, and we're going to start with Frank Zambuto and Kayla Logistics. Kayla Logistics, where your business is our priority. Our goal is to provide our customers with end-to-end logistics solutions worldwide. Contact Frank Zambuto regarding all of your international import and export needs. Frank also has domestic contracts with many of the largest coast-to-coast trucking companies in the USA for non-personal cargo. For Newman Show listeners, just mention the Newman Show and Frank will take 10% off your first domestic trucking shipment in the USA. Frank Zambuto and Kayla Logistics, where your business is our priority. And Frank is an expert in the field. I know there's a lot of confusion right now with tariffs, especially where it comes to China. He's constantly on the phone with businesses in China, so he knows exactly what's going on. So give him a call. He knows what he's talking about, and he can definitely help you out. The next one, I believe, is the Irish Pub. And that is in Baldwin. And he's got a bunch of things going on. You want to follow him, Sean and all them, on Facebook. He's constantly got things going on, like I said. He's still doing the karaoke Fridays, and there's a $10, at 10 p.m. there's an open bar. I believe it's $30 from 10 to midnight. Dart leagues are going to be starting soon, so definitely contact him for information on if you want to join. It's going to be on Monday and Tuesday night. He's still doing his guest bartending on Mondays and Wednesdays, and he's looking for one more guest bartender on the 28th, so if you're interested in winning $500 and making some money and having a little fun while you're at it, definitely give Sean a call. And like I said, he's always doing something fun. He's had beer pong tournaments, he's had cornhole tournaments, dart teams, good food. So definitely check out Sean in the Irish Pub. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Felon for Life and my buddy Jay Martin. You can reach him at 516-996-2780 or skullfan33 at AOL.com. And Jay's just an all-around good guy. He not only can he fix your motorcycle, he could do aftermarket parts or, actual parts. He specializes with Harleys, but he can fix any bike. He's going to be doing a lot of work for me. I got a Honda that he's going to do work on. He's done some stuff on my Harleys. He will be doing more. And his basic mission was, he started this because he wanted to get people on the road that couldn't necessarily afford to do it, especially vets. He wants to make it so vets, especially in need, don't have to pay anything for his repairs. But unfortunately, he has bills to pay too. He's gonna save you a ton of money from going anywhere else to do it. So please give Jay a call. If you're a vet, reach out to him. And he does something else which I've never heard anyone do. If you want to fix your own bike, he will walk you through it, whether you go there with him or he'll talk to you over the phone. And like I said, there's nothing he can't do. So definitely give him a shot. And that is Felon for Life. And just one more thing, I want to throw a shout out. The last couple of weeks we've gone out afterwards to the old Effin' Groovin' in Belmore, which if you remember, that was a cool place. It's now called Effin' Beauty. I was going to try to have Mike on this week too, but unfortunately Mike is the owner of American Beauty in Massapequa, which is right around the corner from the studio here, and he's also the owner of Effin' Beauty. But unfortunately I misplaced his number, so I'm going to try to get that again tonight. But on Monday night, starting at 8, which is 10 minutes ago, they do Drag Queen Bingo, which is a lot of fun. We usually get there towards the end of it when it's wrapping up. And it's just a cool place. They also have very good food. It's still the same layout as Effin' Groovin', if you're familiar with that. They still have all the different craft beers and different drinks. Great bartenders. They have a bartender named Phoebe, which you don't really meet many Phoebes in life, so you definitely want to go down there and check that out when you can. I plan on going there after the show today. And right now we're just waiting on Fred to call in, which he should be calling in any minute. And we will get started with finishing up our topic here. Just sending him the message, say he's got the okay to call. And again, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and what people like to do is they like to scare people with, let me just send him one more thing on here. They like to scare people with misinformation in times of tragedy, which I find unfortunate. And they use certain buzz terms and things to scare you, like assault rifle for one, which a lot of people don't realize. Assault rifles, really, the terminology doesn't exist. Anything you use to assault somebody with becomes an assault something or other. But the definition the government was trying to use at the time was a fully automatic rifle that the military uses. They were banned in the 80s under Ronald Reagan. You haven't been able to buy a fully automatic rifle since the 80s unless you were somehow grandfathered in with a gun that was made prior to that time. You're not going into any gun store right now and getting it. It's even very limited for law enforcement to get a fully automatic rifle. So, Fred says it's ringing. You getting it out there?
Yep.
We got Fred on the air? I'm new to the Skype thing, so just bear with me. Hey, Fred, you there?
Try again.
Fred, we got you on?
There he is.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
All right, now I can hear you. Yeah, just working through little technical glitches. I'm still new to this thing.
Cool.
Better at chatting. So I was just reminding the audience what we were talking about last week and how the media tries to scare people by using terms like assault rifle and making you believe that these rifles that are being used right now are fully automatic when they're not. They're semi-automatic. And just remind everybody who you are and what you know about guns, briefly, and then we'll get started.
Well, again, everybody, my name is Fred, based out of Maryland. I'm a firearms instructor. Went to school for a bit of gunsmithing, and but the primary focus in my area right now is instructing civilians to become licensed in Maryland. I can also go nationwide where my national credentials are, accepted. Unless you're in a place like DC where they will not take my credentials. which through the NRA. Um,
Right.
but yeah, or I think New York is another state, but that's besides the point. But big gun advocate, enthusiast. So I got a bit of a background, not a lot, but I got a little something.
But you know more than the average person. It's fair to say, right?
I know. I think I know a lot more than a lot of politicians and
Well, that's for
news
sure.
reporters.
We're going to get into that pretty quickly because we kind of brushed over it last week. But I was just saying how they use these terms and things to try to scare people. Like when they test fire these guns and they talk about a fully semi-automatic rifle, there's no such thing. It's a fully automatic or it's semi-automatic. And the difference is, and even a layperson like me knows, semi-automatic means one pull, one shot. Automatic or is you hold the trigger and bullets come out until the magazine is empty.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah,
They have burst fire as well, which what is that, 2, 3 shots at a time?
right.
So that's three different types of fires in these rifles that they're discussing, and they kind of lump them all in together. And the scary thing is they're going after specifically the AR-15 because it's a military-style rifle. And again, it's a terminology they use. It's kind of like what the example I used last week. When you take a Volkswagen and put a Lamborghini body kit on it, it's a Lamborghini-style car, but it does not have the same performance as a Lamborghini. It's still a Volkswagen.
Right.
So just because something looks scary, and again, the terminology, the big scary black guns they want to ban are used in less than 1% or about 1% of the shootings. So if they did get their way and ban it, what would happen to the shootings? Really nothing. It's really
Nope.
not going to go down at all, right?
Right.
So then they will move to the next gun, which I'm sure will be the AK-47, and they're going to go gun by gun by gun, and then what some people are calling for, they tell you they're not after your guns, but they're saying they want to ban all semi-automatic weapons. What percentage of guns out there now would you say are semi-automatic?
To be completely honest, like we have a market where we have a large market. I'm gonna say majority of the firearms that civilians or people operate with nowadays are semi-automatic. We have lesser bolt action, revolver, um, pump action, lever action. Like those are more so classics, throwbacks, old school. I'm not saying that we haven't gone through and gotten more updated lever action or revolvers these days, but that's not a go-to system that we use today.
Right.
Um, you're not going to find a lot of law enforcement departments who are going to go with a revolver. Those have kind of been put by the wayside. Where now, semi-automatics have gotten contracts with not only law enforcement but with military and also with civilians. So, we're always going to go with what's best for us in, a self-defense, situation, which is going to be a semi-automatic. Now, if you go military are going to operate with automatic. So, if you got a politician explaining something to you or a news reporter explaining something to you in a fashion that a civilian will own an automatic, chances are it's not likely. You may have a civilian here or two that may own an automatic, but they have special licensing. They have special money to
Or
afford.
they got it illegally,
Right.
which you can make all the laws you want. It's not going to stop the illegal guns from coming through.
Well, because let's say if I owned a big, business, Voodoo Hound Firearm Shop, and my shop specializes in various types of firearms, and I got different classes of licensing through ATF and my state to get approved for this automatic firearm for whatever reason. Whether it may be just for show to draw attraction to, people who want to, come in and get that experience, you know, it's, for collectors purposes, whatever. But, the average person, the average Joe Blow, and the average Mary Jane does not have an automatic. So
And
any politician or reporter that would tell you that is full of shit.
so basically, in the 70s, when they were basically allowed to go to the gun store and buy an automatic weapon, where was all these mass shootings then? Because it should have been like like the apocalypse, basically. Everybody would be shooting everybody, and that
Yeah.
didn't happen. So if it's the guns doing it and the easy access to guns, we have more. And this is another thing. After every shooting, oh, we need gun laws. There's no gun laws on the books. There are thousands of gun laws on the books, federally and state. So if what they're saying is true, we should have basically almost nothing now.
You know what? At this point, we almost have nothing with all the gun control that we have because again we have so many laws that are coming into place, so many different type of ARs that are being banned, and just by either namesake or whatever, not by function. I mean, again, you keep going after the scary black rifle, not realizing again that you have a lot of hunters out here who shoot 30-06 and 308. Those rounds are a lot larger than what the AR shoots.
Right.
The AR shoots 22 on steroids, and the 22 is meant for varmint. So, it becomes very senseless and very emotional when a politician or a news reporter wants to report things about semi-automatics, get terminology wrong, and then go and scare them, the mass on, just incorrect information. It's, again, a lot of bullshit. So
it's funny because the military does use 5.56 rounds, and
correct.
these guns are capable of shooting 2.23 and 5.56. But from my understanding, they started using that because they were less lethal rounds. So it wasn't like you were going to kill everybody you shot with it. You had a chance of taking a POW. Unlike if you were using some of the larger rounds, that is just like if you use the 50 caliber, there's nothing left of the person you're shooting.
Right. So even then, it's I don't. Again, I'm getting to the point now where it's like in the past couple of days, I've gone live on Facebook. I've tried to type up different various statuses and things of with information and education for the public. But then, there's other instructors like me, people who are, way more skilled and educated and well spoken, who can actually, again, agree with me on this. That after a while, we're getting dragged through the mud when it comes down to viewers and listeners.
Right.
Everyone watches NBC, CNN, and all the other big news channels, and then every reporter on national television in the U.S. will tell you that this is a automatic, or this rifle is a military rifle or military style rifle, and they use all this incorrect terminology, and they force feed you fear, and everyone swallows it.
Right.
And then when you get to that point, it's like, well, everything that I'm doing or everything that I'm trying to help with, it becomes numb. Almost. So,
well, see, that's the problem. And I'm actually going to post a video in the comment section now because I couldn't get it to play live. And it's the one I sent you before. It's basically, and this is why I'm fearful of the government making any laws, because they just don't know what they're talking about. And this guy's talking about a 30 caliber magazine clip that's capable of shooting 30 rounds in a half a second, and a ghost gun. I don't even know where to begin, but being that you're more the expert, can you explain how many things are wrong with that statement?
Okay, so let's start. So one, a ghost gun is that's almost slang. It's legal to have a firearm that does not have to be registered when you build it from 80%. But you still have to, stick within the laws while you're building it. Second thing is a magazine clip. Those are two separate things. If I showed you what a clip looks like and I showed you what a magazine looks like, totally different. And everything else that he said, how many, bullets fired per minute or the rate per, it just becomes, what are we talking about here? Like, if you want to report or give information on a firearm, at least let someone with firearm experience, education, speak on that, and you stick to whatever you went to school for.
Right.
It's almost like, if I came out and I started speaking on uh, the stocks and stock market, and I didn't go to school for any of that. So if someone's going to listen to me about stocks and that's not my background or my field, then you're just as much as an idiot than I am. Like you want to take that information from someone who has, again, education in that field.
And I want to know where he even got that
No,
from.
nothing. So
How do you shoot 30 rounds in a half a second in a semi-automatic rifle? Because it was tested by, I forget the guy's name. He's one of the fastest shooters in the world.
Jerry Michelet.
That sounds right. And he tried to shoot 30 rounds in half a second. I think he got 4 off.
Yeah, Jerry Michelet is one of the fastest shooters that we have right now, and his finger is about as close as automatic as the automatic
Right.
you're going to get with the semi-auto. So, besides him, like there may be a few other professional shooters who may get to that point, but not the average person. Like that's not going to happen.
And then you got Biden, whose solution to being safer with guns is getting a double-barrel shotgun, going out, open up your back door, and blasting off a couple of shots if you hear a noise. I think that would piss off your neighbor when you shoot him when he's out there just doing something in his own yard or something. The whole point of being safe with a gun is not just to go out there and blast a shotgun in your backyard. You're supposed to see your target first and know what you're shooting at.
No, we had a woman in Florida who was being attacked by her husband and let off a warning shot with a pistol, and she ended up in jail. So if you listen to Biden, go for it. Pick your prison outfit and your cell while you're at it. But no, some warning shots in many states not recommended.
Well, you put a 12-gauge shotgun shell in, 2 of them in a double barrel and blast that off. That's a little more than a warning shot. He's going to be pretty torn apart, too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, Biden, it's rare that I actually find a politician or news reporter to get online and actually speak on firearms, with full education and, they know the full terminology. It doesn't play out that way a lot of times. So we really don't benefit from listening to them.
And that's what's scary to me is these are the people that want to make these so-called common sense gun laws when they have no knowledge of it. When they're aware they're speaking on the topic and they still don't do any research whatsoever, outside of maybe a video game or what they think something might have happened. Because again, the comments they're making are not based on fact in any way. So they got, where are they getting it? It's got to be their imagination at this point.
From the same place that Trump said is causing a lot of today's violence. Like you said, video games.
This reminds me of the 80s all over again when they were blaming Ozzy Osbourne in video games for kids being violent and killing themselves and everything.
Well, we're back at it. We're back at it. So
you know what? Can something like that put somebody over the edge if they're already in a situation? Possibly, but this person already has an issue. Just like if you want to talk about Adam Lanza and most of these mass shooters, they had plenty of red flags on them and were warned about them. A few people were already on the FBI's radar, the sheriff's radar, the school's radar, and they did nothing. They did nothing about it. And then afterwards, they were like, oh, well, I guess we should have known when the guy posted on Facebook, I'm going to shoot up the school. And he tried to buy guns 5 times, got turned down 5 times, but then he stole one or killed his mother, or depending on which mass shooting you want to pick, however he got it. He was on these mind-altering drugs. And they did nothing. So they get past all the legislation they want. It's not going to stop these mass shootings because they're not going after the people they already know are going to do it.
It's almost coming off as if they're setting these folks, free or off the leash.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Billy is going to shoot up, Walmart next week. And I'm worried about him. He says he's going to shoot up Hispanics, and FBI or whoever's getting the message like, oh, we're looking to it. And then they go back to doing what they were doing. The next thing you know, shooting happened. Public freaks out. news reporters and politicians say, see, we told you this is what happens when we don't have good gun control laws and we need good gun reform and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, wait, wasn't you guys warned about this
Yeah.
weeks ago before this happened?
And they're pushing these red flag laws now, which again I'm completely against. And I don't know if Trump is just trying to take some heat off, which I really hope, because I hope he's not that dumb to think that video games are causing this and red flag laws are going to stop it. Because if you look at some of the things they're doing, first of all, they're going after minorities first. You know this, I know you know this, and one of the ways they're doing it is they're talking about adding a tax onto ammo and guns. So if you make it more expensive, the less fortunate are less likely to be able to afford to buy a gun or ammo, right? So you're going to have the rich people buying it. So now with the red flag law, they're trying to make anyone that supports Trump, anyone that supports the Second Amendment, basically anyone that's a Republican, they're trying to paint them as a white supremacist Nazi. So would you want a white supremacist Nazi to own a gun? No. So now you just got the guns out of all the civilians' hands by passing those two laws.
So on a political level, and a lot of times, again, I like to avoid politics because, again, I can honestly say that I am not, an expert on any form of politics. But again, when I see pictures like, I don't know if you can really see that. Yeah, that's horrible. Wow, you can't. Nope, you can't see it. Nope. Maybe here. Can you see that?
Might be able to see it on a large screen. I can't really see it on mine too much.
Cool. It's a picture of Trump, Hillary, and Bill.
Okay.
And, again, not being an expert, but Trump was a Democrat for how long?
Most of his life.
And he runs for office and now listed as a Republican.
Which made sense because he knew they were the weaker party.
So if I have been pro 2A all this time, and all of a sudden tomorrow I start preaching anti 2A messages, that's not going to be, that will set a lot of people off. Like, what's going on with Fred that all of a sudden now he's anti 2A or he's, his political stance has changed? Or what happened? And so for me, I'm not surprised when, again, like you said, if I am the rich, if my lifestyle, if my cultural background, when I say cultural background at this point, again, you got a lot of people where at one point culture or cultural background will refer to ethnicity, where again, if you're black, you have probably a black cultural background somewhere where, something's Afrocentric. If you're, Hispanic, your cultural background may be something of the Hispanic origins. If you're white, depending on, where your ancestral background, your family background is from, you may have a cultural background here. But at this point right now, in 2019, we have a class or, division that's happening where, again, if you're poor, you're middle class, you're upper class and rich, there's a cultural background that happens on each level. Because if you're poor or, you're lower class, you're constantly fighting for survival.
Right.
Your mind state, your mental and your emotional state is going to be a certain way. You're middle class, you're not necessarily poor, you're not necessarily rich, you're maybe in between or, hey, leaning towards either side, but you understand the balance of both. And when you're rich, you really don't give a shit about the poor because, again, we're all in a selfish mind state these days where we really don't care about anyone else. So if you're rich, you can't possibly imagine why someone would need a firearm or a gun if you constantly got private security.
Exactly.
You wouldn't understand possibly why someone would be eating fast food and off the dollar menu if you're always eating filet mignon and top shelf whatever. Like, the mind state and the culture is different. So even your music choice may be a little different, and who knows? So even at that point, when you don't operate, or you're not surrounded by the public, you don't have that sense of need of, I need my own security, meaning my own firearm. I need, you may say, I'll put some cameras up. I'll hire a bodyguard here and there. I'll hire a limo driver who packs, a personal defense weapon and body armor. But for the average Joe Blow, again, we want to say, what, we want to protect ourselves, because hell, we got to go out and work Monday through Friday, or sometimes 6 days a week, 7 days a week. We got to pay bills, So our frame of thinking is a bit different than the rich. So when the rich can tell everyone else, this is the way you guys should be living, as if we're going to live like them, but not on a pay scale that they make. Again, I can see why they would sit here and say, you don't need a firearm, because you guys are shooting up each other. You guys don't need it. But then I'm going to hire a personal bodyguard for myself that's, again, going to be armed.
See, well, it's funny too, because what they say and what they do are very different. The elite aren't affected. Like when Obamacare went in, the government didn't have to follow those same healthcare laws that they were passing for the rest of the country. And when the elite talk about the elite, like, oh, Trump's a businessman. When we get in, we're going to take care of the poor, and we're going to tax the hell out of the rich. But you have people that are for that. I'll pick on Bernie Sanders a little bit. He's saying the income should be minimum $15 an hour. Yet at the time when he first said that, he wasn't paying his staff $15 an hour. He was paying them less. So then we got a little heat, and this is back in 2015, 2016. He started paying them that, but then he made them work more hours and still kept them at the $15 an hour for 40 hours, even though they were working 60. So they don't live by their own rules that they pass. And it's funny, too, because they also control the media, and there's been a few situations just over the last week, and I'm sure you're aware of it, too, where a good guy with a gun stopped a potential mass shooting, and it really kind of gets a media blackout. So I think they just want to keep themselves elevated like most socialist countries are, where they're not affected by any of these laws. Bernie Sanders pays a 13% tax rate, as most of these rich elite people do, like most of the people in the Hollywood actors and all this that are supporting him do. They don't have to pay 13%. They could give more. Or they could go directly to the street where all these homeless are, in L.A., Tent City and all that. They had the money to get them off the streets. They had the ability to give them jobs and pay them the $15 an hour, they say, but they're not doing it. They want us to do it.
It's, like I said, nowadays it's more comical, because a lot of what's happening today begins to remind me of everyone's favorite TV show, Game of Thrones. And a few politicians begin to look like, or kind of remind me of some of these characters, where I'm like, oh, that politician could definitely be a Lannister, or that politician can definitely be, this person, and because at some point when you start to relate to the TV show to real life, a lot of us little people, or again, middle age, I'm sorry, not middle age workers, but the middle workers, we have to bust our ass, literally bust our ass on the daily, and we appreciate everything that we have. Even value life a little different than others. So when we got a lot to lose, we want to protect it in a different way than they would. Because again, if I could afford guards, I have no need for my own personal protection, unless I just wanted to buy a whole bunch of guns because I could afford it. Not because, not for sport, not for, hunting, personal defense, whatever. I'm going to buy it for collectors because I can afford this $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 gun. When the rest of us are sitting here trying to pick up $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, pistols and rifle, whatever. So and again, if you imagine yourself being at the top, and the way you remain in power or in control is by keeping, against like a pyramid. You have to keep these people here
Right.
and the middle people here in order for you to stay on top. Because the second that something slides off and everything becomes equal, there's no top. And like, a lot of people, they want to remain in control. And the only way to remain in control is by implementing certain things. Again, hence gun control. Because again, firearms are a sign of power.
It's the only way for us to fight back like we did in the past, like other countries have. Because even with this tax thing too, I think it kind of ties in, because if they're going to tax the rich, let's say 80%, because I've heard numbers that high being thrown around, the elite that are already there are not going to get affected. They can pick up their business tomorrow and move. They're already personal billionaires. A lot of these people, they could shut down tomorrow and it's not going to affect them. They'll still be billionaires. But someone like yourself, who owns your own company, you're Voodoo Hound Graphic Art and Design, who made this logo, by the way, you can't reach that level, because once you hit a certain point and they start taxing you 80%, you're going to make less than your employees. So now you're in a situation where you could never become a true elite, a true rich person. So they get to keep their private club private, and no one else is ever even going to be able to get into it. And once you get to a certain level and you get knocked back down to the poor status, where can you go? What can you do to fight? Now all your weapons are taken away, all your fights taken away. The government runs everything. The same government they don't trust to do anything. You hear a lot of anti-Trump people right now speaking that also want the government to direct where our money goes. They want to turn the weapons over to him. They want to give our rights back to this government that they don't trust. It boggles my mind. It's like there's no common sense to that whatsoever. If I don't trust someone, I'm not giving them anything, let alone everything.
Yeah, that's when you got that much power, it can be dangerous, and that's been repeated. I don't know how many times throughout history that even for a good man or a good woman, too much power could be very toxic. Like, it could be poisonous.
Look at Venezuela.
Again, for the government to play the middleman between the people, where, hey, if Fred and Newman couldn't come to an agreement on something, then here comes the government and say, hey, we're going to settle this. Okay, so Fred, Dennis, you guys, do this. We're going to pay a tax, or we're going to do this. And that way, both of you can kind of get what you want. Okay, cool. But the second that it becomes, hey, Fred and Dennis, this is what you guys are going to do. It's like, whoa. It's like, Fred and Dennis aren't slaves. Why are you telling us what we're going to do versus kind of refereeing what, our issue?
Because I think they want us back to
that point, when the government gets to tell you what you're going to do, or these are your options, it's like, again, you're a parent, you're overseeing, and for me, again, being I love, again, history, all forms of history. And, again, me being a black person, when you start to do little certain things as like an overseer, not saying like, I go to work and I have a project manager or something like that. That's fine. I don't have those skills. But when you're a government and you have, you're in control of a group of people, or a large amount of the people, or hell, all of the people, and you're giving them ultimatums, or, hey, these are your choices. You choose A or you choose B. Which one do you want? That's really not giving us an option per se. That's an ultimatum. It's not really a choice you're really giving us, especially when it comes to the Constitution.
Right.
If the Second Amendment says, shall not be infringed, and every time you're finding a way to infringe, just not bluntly or blatantly infringing. Like, at some point, it's like, all right, well, what are we doing here? It's almost like the certain type of issues that we're having today, where all of a sudden, and I'm going to use this, and this is probably going to bring up a whole different topic for you later down the line. Where if a man takes a woman out and slips her a pill, sir, that's not consent. You're finding a way to get into this woman without consent. And that's what's happening at this point with the people, where the government is definitely doing things without our consent. They're slipping us a good pill, or media is slipping us a pill, And then all of a sudden, we're taking a drink of it, and guess what? We're all going to be part of the Me Too movement.
Right. And it's basically like they're trying to make us maybe not full-fledged slaves, but indentured servants. So they're going to give us all these socialist programs. We get free health care, free school, free this, free that. But we owe them this, and we have to give them this to get it. So, how is that really any different than what, we you keep saying learn history so you don't repeat it, and we're pushing ourselves right back into there. If we forget everything that happened from 1776 on, how we fought to get where we are, how we got the Constitution, how we got our Bill of Rights, how we had all the rights that we had, we're throwing that all away to go back to where we were before that.
Well,
for safety?
Even before 1776, there's a book that I enjoyed, and they even had a documentary of it called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And the point that it really referred to was talking about the farmers and the hunter-gatherers. There were two types of people. And at that point in time, the hunter-gatherers who didn't sit still and they were constantly armed, they were like warriors. And then you had the more peaceful people who were just the farmers. They stayed put, grew their food, prepped for the winter. The hunter-gatherers, they were like, you know what, we're going to hunt, we're going to keep moving. We'll hunt for our food, and if we find food or we find another tribe that we could take advantage of, we're going to do that. And at that time, the hunter-gatherers, they did well for themselves. They went on. They did good. Not good things per se, but they did good for themselves.
Right.
While the farmers got attacked and they had to play catch up. They had to, gain some skills. So today, it becomes sort of the same thing. Like, a lot of us now are forced to be farmers, where the hunter-gatherers, politicians, and media at this point, they're kind of just like attacking while we're kind of made to be told, or we're being told, hey, keep working, keep farming, keep doing this for the masses. And in general, the masses are not actually for all of us. It's actually for them,
right.
For the big business, for their big money, their top dollar. Keep spending. So at some point, when a lot of people talk about going off the grid and they seem like, they will wear a tinfoil hat, I'm like, you know what? I actually get why they do it. But again, even then, the government finds a way to go and bother them. Hey, you guys can't live off the grid. You guys have to pay a utility bill. You guys have to pay taxes. You guys can't just go and live in your, RV here. And, so I'm at a point now where I'm like, there's so many rules on top of rules on top of rules, whether it's gun laws, voting, and this and that. And I'm like, honestly, I'm not saying that I'm anti-government. I'm anti-huge government. I'm going to tell you every way to live your life. I'm totally against that.
And that's what we fought for, was for less government. That's why we were the United States. Each state had its own rules, and the federal government was really a small faction, and now it's a world power. Our federal government's a world power, and they're telling everybody what to do, including us. And that's not how it was built. That's not how the Constitution was designed. We were not a democracy when we were built. We were a republic. It wasn't about mob rules. It was about it being a nation of laws. And we kind of got away from that. And both Democrats and Republicans push it all the time. Oh, democracy. This is a democracy. We're going to spread democracy around the world. And, it's kind of Hitler's thing. You keep saying a lie long enough and loud enough, it becomes truth. Now we are a democracy. But if you look back at what we were a nation of laws. So that way the minorities did have a say in what happened because there were laws to protect them. Now we're giving that all away and letting the government decide what's right and wrong. And when you look at governments like that, you take Venezuela 20 years ago, they were like, wow, look at how great Venezuela is. Socialism's great. Look at how much money they have. Everybody's living great. Now look at them. They took all their guns away. Then they turned. Now you got these guys eating out of dumpsters. The military's shooting them in the street. And it's mass anarchy over there. And they're saying, well, that's not a good example of socialism. But it was 20 years ago when you pointed it out. That's what happens to socialist countries. You give the government too much power, they will abuse it. I think I hate to agree with Ted Cruz, and I don't trust his motives at all. But he's right. It's time. It's been time for congressional term limits. There never should have been unlimited power in Congress. They're more
No.
dangerous than the president will ever be. A president can only be there for 8 years. Congress, you can be there for life. And you get enough of the boys club together, they're going to stick with the same rules, and it doesn't matter Democrat, Republican. They're going to pass the laws they want to pass because they're all on the same side. They need to go.
Truthfully. And I think that's a lot of times why again, lately, on both left and right, everything is entirely emotional. You can hear people, well, the liberals this, or the conservatives this, the Democrats this, the Republicans this, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if everyone else realized, but while we're bickering and arguing and hell, at this point, killing each other over it, fighting each other, and they actually go behind doors and go to happy hour, shake hands,
Right.
and discuss on how they're going to turn some new laws and do this. I'm like, those things that we're fighting about doesn't matter for them. It truly doesn't. Again, they already have whatever little power, and they have that already. We're the ones that actually have to live with it. If anything, I'm not going to say they're like criminals. When I make this reference, criminals do not follow. Law does not exist.
Right.
Survival does. To politicians, laws don't exist. Power does. So again, it's like the laws are actually meant for us to keep us in line and keep us in check. And I get that, a lot of laws at a lot of times are, some laws they do good. They're there for order. I get it. But at the same time, when you're stacking on laws and on top of laws and they don't begin to make sense, like again, I'm not going to talk about Maryland right now, but I'm referring to New Jersey. New Jersey, there was a woman, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the last segment of yours, but a woman had a pistol. She had a crazy ex, and the license that she had with her pistol was only for in-home. So she needed to go and apply for a concealed weapons permit through New Jersey, and they told her that she needed a reason or a good reason for why she needed to apply for this license. And long story short, they denied her. The very next day, she dies in her driveway.
Right.
And I'm like, you got a state that just told you that you need a good reason why you need to be applying for this, and she tells you, I have a restraining order, and my ex is threatening to kill me. Like, if that's not a good enough reason to give someone a carry permit, and that person dies, like, that really says, I give no fucks about your life.
Right.
But I'm going to leave it to law enforcement and military to only carry a gun. And even then, I just seen today that someone who was serving in the military, maybe I'm missing something, but because he was originally from another country, he serves 20 years in the U.S. Military, and then somehow he's being transported back. So I'm like, what's that about? How do you serve in the U.S. military and all of a sudden you get kicked out of the country? Like, after you serve, once you give a part of yourself to a country, or whether you serve, whether you're saying you're in danger, and then somehow the government still shows you that they don't give two flying fucks about your life. How many more hints do we need as a people to say, you know what? All right, we got to start changing some laws or something, because someone, like, you guys are showing that you really don't care.
Yeah. And they prove it every day, and we sit back and watch and give them more rights. There was a situation. Remember the other guy that started killing on the military base? He was I forget. He was a military guy, but he was also a terrorist. And he told them, "I don't want to be here. I'm anti-American, whatever." And they forced him to stay. And then he goes on a killing spree, and they're like, "Oh, look at this! Yeah, look at this! Another one told you straight out."
He told you, like,
and you made him stay, and you kept him armed and trained, military trained as a killer, and put a weapon in his hand and went, "Oh my God, what's going on?" You did it.
Yep. See, at this point, all I can do or continue to do is, if I go Facebook Live, or if I get people in Maryland or Virginia who says, "Hey, Fred, or we're going to contact Voodoo Hound Farm Services. We want to get licensed. We want to get trained. I want to know things about the AR-15, the AK-47. I want to know things about this bolt action rifle, this pump action shotgun." At this point, I can't keep arguing about what the politicians are stating on the media. I have to keep focused and keep pushing on correcting what they're saying and then teaching the public.
Right.
Because if I keep going back to reiterate what they're saying, I'm becoming a broken record.
It's funny you say that, because last year I put out an offer to anybody who doesn't understand about guns or why they're scared of the AR-15. I was going to show them the misconceptions of it. Offered it to everybody. I said, we'll go to a gun store. You don't even have to listen to me. I'll have the experts show you the different guns and the differences of them. Not one person took me up on it. So they don't want the truth, it seems. They just want to listen to what they're being told by someone who they really shouldn't trust, which is our government right now.
Yeah, well, at some point, this Darwinism,
Yeah.
leave the sheep for slaughter. I mean, at some point, like if you're saying that I'd rather not know the truth, lie to me because the lie feels better. The lie is going to feel better to my emotions, or it's going to feed me mentally what I want to be fed. At this point, I'm like, I want to say I want to have that faith in people, but as the days go by, again, the crazies are always going to exist. Period.
Right.
Point blank. Because again, I find it. Again, like, using logic. And I know you only have so much time here, so I'm trying to, kind of make it quick. The guy who was stating that, he did not like Hispanics, or he didn't like Mexicans. And he drove 10 hours to El Paso, Texas to shoot up a Walmart full of Hispanics.
Right.
Logically speaking, like, it's your right not to like a race. Like, if you don't want to like a race of people, fine. By all means, fine. If you don't like a certain cultural background, fine. That's your opinion.
Right.
But logically speaking, if a lot of Hispanics, or if South America is right here, and you go to the next state over and you find Hispanics, that's like a no shit. You're going to find Hispanics.
Ironically, in a gun-free
Hispanics
zone.
that have always lived there, or a lot of them are migrating to become American.
Right.
Why the fuck would you have a problem with Hispanics living here? Logically, I don't get it. But again, it's a crazy person.
Yeah.
There's no logic there to begin with. It's an emotional thing. I don't like it. Well, whatever your reason is, it's not logical. That's for it has to be either emotion or just something just crosswired and just not making sense. But because it is crosswired, and because those type of people do exist, I want to be armed.
Yeah. The only thing I want to add, because we only really have like a couple minutes left, the only laws I would change, I would lighten up the HIPAA laws and let the FBI be aware on the NICS check if somebody is truly criminally insane, they should know that. And the other thing is, instead of just having someone, like especially in New York, a more restrictive state, you have to get the gun license and buy the gun before you can even shoot it for the first time. But yet there's no safety course required. I think a safety course should be mandatory, if not in the school system. Before you purchase a firearm, you should go through some sort of safety course. And that, I think, would dramatically limit the accidents that happen. And as a firearms instructor, I would think you would agree with that, right?
Yes. The other thing I would add to that is also, we're all held accountable when we, again, fuck up.
Yeah.
Dennis, if I told you have a glass of milk on the edge of your table, and I say, Dennis, you may want to move that glass of milk because you're going to knock it over. And you say, oh, don't worry about it. I get it. What's the worst can happen? And then next thing you know, doing this knocks the glass of milk off and you spill it. Dennis, I warned you. Now that's your responsibility to clean up the mess.
Right.
You made the mess. You made a mistake. If we tell the government, hey, this person has been talking about killing a group of people, you might want to look into that. And they see blatantly, I'm going to kill XYZ. There's no red flag in that. This person is telling you they're going to kill this a group of people. Again, if you do nothing about it, after they blatantly said, I'm going to kill these people, is that not their mess to clean up? Is that not their responsibility held responsible for allowing this a wild animal loose? Again, yes, don't blame the gun, blame the shooter, because the gun can't do anything without the shooter. But again, it's like, we can't keep saying, hey, what we're all going to do is remove guns because we're all going to do this. Hey, never mind the fact that the government was warned already. The person actually admitted that they said they were going to do this. And, again, it's like, oh, well, we didn't have anything to do with it.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time again. But, Fred, I want to thank you again for calling in. Hopefully people learned something, and we'll be in touch. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
All right, man. Have a good one.